Hello and welcome to On Purpose Astrology. It is Mercury retrograde time again. And this time Mercury is in retrograde in the sign of Virgo. It stays in Virgo for the duration of its retrograde. Often when Mercury goes retrograde, it'll go back into the previous sign. This time it's Virgo all the way. And the dates are the 24th of August to the 16th of September 2023. Of course, for those of you that like to see a chart, like to see the visual, there we can see Mercury retrograde there in that chart, circled in red. It's very close to Mars. I'll talk about that shortly, and some of the other aspects it kind of makes or nearly makes while it's in retrograde. But what's Mercury in Virgo all about? Well, Mercury rules Virgo. It's in its sign where it's very comfortable. It's a practical Mercury, down to earth, logical, matter of fact, because of course Virgo is an earth sign. Critical, sometimes criticizing even. Attention to detail, the small details. That's very much a Mercury in Virgo thing, a small detail. When you're focused on the small detail, you might miss the bigger picture, the bigger perspective, because you're so deep into it that you don't see what's going on around. Maybe that's one theme or one thing to reflect on with this Mercury retrograde period. As I'm sure many, most, or all of you know, Mercury retrograde is all about going backwards when it comes to things like travel, communications, mindset, thoughts, words, technology even. We see little glitches, little mistakes, things kind of going wrong. And I don't like to make too much of Mercury retrograde, of course, because we have about 2 or 3 Mercury retrogrades each year. So if you live to be 100, you're going to have nearly 300 Mercury retrogrades in your life. It only lasts for about 3 weeks. It's the fastest planet, and the fastest planets, the faster the planet, the shorter the retrograde periods are. Whereas if you get into Pluto, it can be it's months when it goes into retrograde. So it's retrograde for a lot of the time. So what can we do to help kind of mitigate any of the effects of Mercury retrograde? Well, I always suggest that you double check. We're talking about the details, especially with Virgo, but with Mercury itself as well. Double check, triple check all the details. If you have to travel, if you have to sign contracts, if you have to sort of buy new technology, if you have to sort of send emails and, important communications, then double and triple check. I will give you an example from myself from a few years ago, from many years ago, actually, in a Mercury retrograde. It was a long time ago when I was working in marketing, and one of the projects that I had was to organize for prize winners, pairs of prize winners all over Europe to gather together for a big party celebration in Madrid, in Spain. And I had to fly all these people. I think there were about 20, maybe more, probably more than 20 people from all over different destinations all over Europe. I had to arrange for them to fly in, I had to book their flights, arrange for them to fly in on the same day, more or less at the same time, arrange transport from the hotel, from the airport to the hotel, from the hotel to the party and back, and then back to the airport again after the weekend, as well as booking the hotel, making sure everything was done. And oh, you can imagine all the emails and the communication between all these different people to try and get it all organized. Double, triple, actually quadruple checked everything, and everything was perfect. I even got my colleague on board, the lady that was helping me. She didn't know about Mercury retrograde. I sort of explained it to her, and she said, "Oh, right, okay." So she double and triple checked everything. So everything was perfect. We were very organized. Now, Virgo, organized, organization. That's another tip for this Mercury retrograde. Organization. Get yourself organized if you can. If you're not an organized type of person, then get someone to help you. Not everyone is good at organizing. Some people are brilliant at organizing, particularly the earth signs. Get someone to help you, particularly if you're in a work situation where you have to pay attention to detail, or whether you're in a situation where you've got to deal with contracts and negotiations and that kind of thing. If you can put off these things until after the Mercury retrograde, then that's great. But life is what life is, and often we can't. To go back to the Madrid trip, everything ran perfectly. However, Mercury retrograde still made itself known. Some of the flights were very delayed. So then we had to rearrange some of the travel arrangements, some of the transfers to the hotel, and people were running late for the party. There was nothing we could do about that. That was completely out of our control. We'd done everything correctly, myself and my colleague. But because we were very organized and we had all the detail, we had paperwork, all the detail in front of us as well. It wasn't just in our head, we could actually see it on paper and on a screen. We were able to reorganize very quickly. So that's another word, I think, for Mercury retrograde, particularly in Virgo, having the capacity to reorganize things if possible. And if necessary, if things are organized very well in the first place, all the better. So what kind of aspects is this Mercury retrograde going to make? Well, you can see it's quite close to Mars, but not that close to Mars that it's making a strong aspect, and it goes backwards away from Mars. But still, we might have the effect, certainly at the beginning of this Mercury retrograde with Mars, angry words spoken. Maybe that's something, if anything, happened around sort of difficult conversations or angry words spoken, or where you've felt or had to assert yourself. Maybe in this period, you might like to reflect on your communication style and how you assert yourself and how your words affect others. It will be making for most of Mercury in retrograde, will be making for most of its retrograde period a trine with Jupiter in Taurus, an Earth trine. That underlines the whole thing I've just said about being practical and organized. But it also reminds us to see the bigger picture and the perspective, to take a step back from the detail, but still make sure you know what the detail is. And again, get help with that if you need it. Don't forget to ask for help. Virgo is probably the most helpful, or one of the most helpful signs. In fact, all the earth signs are very helpful in their practicality. So get help if you need it. Sort of take a step back and say, can you help me see this in another perspective? I'm getting really caught up in this, whether it's to do with organization or whether it's to do with your mindset or your thought patterns. Get a little bit caught up. What is the reality of the situation? See if you can take a step back and go into your observer mind. For those of you who practice meditation, it might be a good meditative practice to start thinking about your observer mind. That is when you have your thoughts, your monkey mind, where you can't stop thinking. And even in meditation, we can't stop thinking, but we become aware. Ask yourself, who or what is becoming aware of my thoughts? That's how you access the observer mind. As I say, it's a great meditation practice for this Mercury retrograde. Jupiter, well, as I said, the balance between the detail, getting into the weeds of the detail, and also seeing the bigger picture, the bigger perspective. So what can you learn about that, really? Jupiter is about wisdom. Mercury is about mindset. So the idea of the balance between what do you know as fact and what is the wisdom in that. They are slightly different things. You gain wisdom through experience. You gain facts by sort of learning facts, right? It's a different thing. So opportunities. What opportunities have been offered to you, perhaps before this Mercury retrograde or during this Mercury retrograde? It's a great time to reflect, Mercury retrograde, on those opportunities. You may not be in a position to take up the opportunities, but you'll have time to think about them. Or there might be a deadline and you might feel pushed to sort of take up an opportunity before it's gone. Again, think about that, try and find the perspective, look into the detail as well as seeing the bigger picture. And often, or sometimes, you can't delay everything until after the Mercury retrograde period is over. You might have to make a decision then. And again, as I said, take advice, get help. And don't be too scared of Mercury retrograde. It rarely, you know, it's usually niggles if things do go wrong. It's rarely kind of life-changing thing that happens with Mercury retrograde. So don't worry too much. But you know, if you can take the chance to reflect, it's great for study and revision. I know certainly in the UK, I know the exam period is over now, and school kids have got their results, and university students have got their results, but maybe there is studying to do over this summer period. Maybe they're studying to do, revision to do, or retakes to do when college or school or university comes back. Maybe some of you are thinking about your dissertation, your final year dissertation, that kind of thing. So it's good for study and revision and research. And it's a good time for just thinking about where you want to go, where you want to go come the autumn, come the fall, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, of course, what you want to learn, where you want to progress, whether that's training, whether that's in college or school, whether that is just in terms of your mindset and your thought patterns. As I said, meditation is fantastic for Mercury retrograde, particularly this one in Virgo, monkey mind. Virgo is a bit of a worrier. The sign of Virgo can be a bit of a worrier. So again, what are you worrying about? Reflect on that. Again, try and find some of the perspective. So there is an overlap with Venus in Leo. I'll put the link below, but if you want to get some insight into Venus in Leo retrograde, there is a video called If You Don't Love Yourself. I'll put the link in there, which explains a lot about what it's all about and the relationship of Venus in Leo to the nodal axis. We have the north node in Aries now, and the south node in Libra, which is the sign ruled by Venus, and that nodal axis is square Pluto. So read back on that, but very briefly, there's an overlap, as I said. Venus will be retrograde until the 5th of September. As I said, the 16th of September is when Mercury will be retrograde. So there's a little bit of an overlap there. And really, the themes of this Venus retrograde, therefore, do continue for the first couple of weeks of this Mercury retrograde. And what are those themes? As I said, you can have a look at If You Don't Love Yourself. There's sort of quite a long video. Well, I think it's about 13-14 minutes video that goes into the details. However, in essence, this Venus retrograde is about self-love. And the nodal axis squaring to Pluto is still in effect. It's going to be in effect really until about November, but still through August and through into September, it's going to be quite strong. And it's reflecting on some issues that might have come up during this Mercury retrograde. Perhaps reflect on some issues that might have come up about your own sovereignty, about where you give your power away or where you take too much power from others, how you sit in your own authority, how you sit in your own sovereignty, what you want to do, and whether you do things often that you don't want to do for the sake of people pleasing, where you stand alone, where you need to stand alone and do your own thing, versus where you need to cooperate and compromise with other people. And also, if any power that you have, you might be coming into your power during this period, during this Pluto squaring the nodes. And what do you do with that? And realizing, particularly because Pluto is in Capricorn still, power brings responsibility. Do you take responsibility for your actions? So essentially, self-love, of course, with Venus in Leo, not just Venus in Leo retrograde, but Venus in Leo generally. And because it goes retrograde, we get a much longer period than normal of Venus in Leo than we would in a normal sign when it doesn't go retrograde. So self-love, because if you can't love yourself, how can you love someone else? That was the essence of that video. Enjoy Mercury retrograde. As I said, it's never really something to be scared of. It's just something to be aware of. And it's an opportunity, especially with that trine to Jupiter. It's an opportunity to do some deep thinking. It's an opportunity to find a new perspective and some new wisdom. Hope that's helpful. I hope you enjoy this video. I hope you come back and watch another one, and please subscribe. I posted a video the other day about a conference that I'm speaking on. It's an interview with Rod Chang, who's running this conference. Fantastic value, £50 for a whole long weekend live. And you can also, for a couple of months, watch all videos afterwards, recorded. And it also includes pre-conference workshop. And I have to say, most conferences charge extra for the extra workshops. So £50 only for all of that. 17 astrologers from all over the world, an international conference, lots of different modalities, suitable for beginners, also suitable for pros and experienced astrologers. Watch that video, which is the previous one immediately to this one, and please subscribe if you want to. And so I'm so grateful for all of you. I've had some really good views and great comments and great feedback. Love you all. Enjoy Mercury retrograde. Till next time. Bye bye.